Today I'm going to be ranking the physiques of the women that have qualified and are competing at the 2025 CrossFit Games. I got my inspiration from Mason Startup that did this with the men. And Mason, why didn't you rank the women?
This is just going to be my own opinion.
Anyway, before I get to my rankings of those women, I got some grievances to clear up with Mason Startup, starting with this one.
Justin Medeiros. He looks good. I'm going to go ahead and give recent Justin Medeiros A tier.
It was the first person that he ranked. Giving Justin Medeiros an A tier rank is going to entirely skew what I think the rest of your ranks are going to be. Justin's best physique came against Baden Brown on that 75 toes to bar workout.
Justin Medeiros will come in 6.
Where there was a handful of running at what I believe was the 2022 CrossFit Games in Madison. And even that physique was likely B tier. At best, current modern day Justin Medeiros is a C tier level athlete. Just looking at the dude. Because that's what we're doing. We're looking at the dudes. And then we're going to be looking at the chicks. Gets even worse when you see that he gave Colton Mertens a freaking C tier.
Kind of hard to judge because he's got such weird proportions.
I do like that he said something about his proportions because, yeah, that should skew the way that your physique looks to the onlooker. But he said he's got a small chest, and I think Colton Mertens can bench 405 pounds.
Small chest.
But it's just the proportions. Putting Justin 2 ranks above Colton Mertens completely ruins the validity of this entire tier list.
I don't know what this is.
That's equipoise.
But the one thing I would say is shave your chest.
You're telling me that you're going to knock Jeff Adler down from the S tier down to an A tier because of the hair on his chesty chest. This makes this entire thing asinine. He's got the best physique on the entire list, shy of Dirty Gerard.
This is S tier.
Caleb Clements is not S tier. He's not.
I'm gonna go ahead and give this A tier.
The best thing on Jorge Fernandez is his hair. Now, that doesn't give him anything better than a B tier, which is what I think he is. You can't just put him next to Rich Froning and say, well, close enough, and give him an A tier.
Anyway, Hopper's got a decent physique.
That's what I used to think too until I met the dude, so maybe this isn't quite fair, but it's why I have given Mason pictures like the one that he's staring at right there, a 220 freaking pound man with veins everywhere, giant freaking chest, and you're gonna give him a C tier? Are you out of your mind? You think Justin Medeiros has a better physique than that guy? Are you crazy?
Now we got Harry Lightfoot, and I'm gonna go ahead and give this a B tier.
And who does Harry Lightfoot look like?
Oh my God.
A mulletless Justin Medeiros. And you put Jason Hopper below Harry Lightfoot? Are you out of your mind? Did you do all this stuff so you knew that I'd make a reaction video because it's so bad?
Really, nothing kind of sticks out when you look at him.
We're going to give Roman Krennikov D tier. Now, he's probably not an A tier. He's a B tier. But a D?
Chris Ibarra, B tier.
That's your D tier. Chris Ibarra is the bottom of the barrel of the men competing at the 2025 CrossFit Games. I'm sorry, but it's true.
Anyway, he's got a decent physique. He's not insanely shredded. I'm going to go ahead and give this B tier.
Mason clambers on about how it was hard to find a picture with Bill with the shirt off. So he clips something from a video of mine where you can see that he isn't wearing a shirt. That is a terrible picture of Bill. If you just looked at that picture, it's a D tier. If there's somebody that's arguably going to be hanging out with Chris Ibarra at the bottom of the bucket at this year's CrossFit Games, it's Bill Leahy. I give him a C. But he's no B. Now here's the thing that I had to do to try to separate my rankings list from Mason's list. You have to state where you are going and where you're coming from. My list is a little bit bigger. I've got a double S tier at the top. I've got an F on the bottom. I've got everything in between. Double S is just like unfathomable great women's physique. And then down at the bottom is the F. What I've done for you is I have given you the greatest women's physique of all time. I want to give you 4 seconds to think about who could be the greatest women's physique of all time. She's going to be sitting at the double S. Here we go. Andrea Pinheiro, then you're a winner. That's the double S. And anything that doesn't look anything like Andrea Pinheiro's freaking physique, you're going to be lower on that list. Like I said, we got to do a range here. So who's going to be at the bottom of the list? Well, it's not going to be who you think. You may have already been wondering who should be sitting at the bottom of the list. And you wouldn't think that it's the Ben Smith equivalent of the women, a champion of the CrossFit Games. That's right, it's Laura Horvath.
Is this true?
And the opposite could be true about Laura Horvath. There isn't a single room on the planet that she's going to walk into where every single person's head turns. She could very well go about being a ghost if she wanted to.
This is blasphemous.
She was the fittest on earth. Cannot argue with that. Those are her physical capabilities. But just as an onlooker at the person, Laura, you are a D tier. And now you're probably thinking, if Laura's got the worst and Pinheiro is at best a double S, ding, 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 you figured it out. It's going to be very challenging and now impossible for a woman to be below Laura Horvath's ranking. We've set our floor. So there is an F, but I might as well get rid of the F. Now we're going to go through the 30 women at the CrossFit Games starting in alphabetical order with Miss Haley Adams. Haley, like Bill Leahy, is rather tough to grade. grade because she's always wearing those big old baggy t-shirts. And this is a Physique's ranking. But every once in a while, Haley does that thing where she tucks her shirt into her belt and you see some abs popping out. Never had the craziest muscle mass, but she's pretty symmetrical. Proportions are pretty good, and for all of those reasons, she's going to get a B. Haley, you're in the B tier. Danielle Brandon's going to be hanging out at the A tier. Not the S, not the double S. She doesn't look like Pinheiro. But one of the things that Danielle has going for her is that she is just a camera magnet. And yeah, that's part of my ranking system. Top to bottom, side to side, she looks pretty similar. She's got good proportions. She's got pretty decent muscle mass, alright conditioning. And when I say conditioning, I mean body fat percentages. I don't mean your ability to hang out on a rower for however long you want to do it. I mean it in the sense of bodybuilding, the amount of fat between the skin and the muscle. Jung Young Choi, been at the CrossFit Games forever, and you may not even have known about it. For those reasons, Jung Young, you get to hang out in the C tier. Miss Amy Kringle.
Oh my God.
This is something, isn't it? The conditioning is incredible, the symmetry is incredible, the proportions are incredible, and when she takes pictures, it's like you can't take your eyes off of them because there's so many freaking cuts in the stomach. You received the Pinheiro Award. Double S Amy Kringle.
That's ridiculous.
Emily DeBroy. She's a sleeper A pick. And she's another one of those when a picture is taken, it just kind of catches you. Gotta do a double take. A tier. Abby Doman. S tier. Regular S tier. The only reason Abby can't go any higher is because she isn't quite as lean as Amy Kringle, and her proportions aren't quite as good as Amy Kringle. She's almost a little bit too big up top. That is in comparison to the legs. If the legs were bigger or stronger or the upper body was smaller, the symmetry would be better. Maybe the proportions would be better. Proportions up and down. But still, you can't argue with an S tier for Abby. Hanging out in the S tier is Miss Fisa Gaffi. She's lean, she's strong, especially for her size. And when I'm talking about muscle mass with these chicks, the size definitely plays a point. So yeah, Danny Spiegel's got a lot of muscle mass, but relative to her size, she doesn't have that much muscle mass. But Fee, for her size, has a buttload of muscle mass. For all those reasons, the leanness, camera turning head nature of the pictures that she'll take, she's hanging out with the S's. Lydia Fish. She's lean, she's proportionate, she's symmetrical. She doesn't really have many pictures where she's showing off her conditioning, so maybe she takes a hit for that, but for any reason in between, hanging out in the B tier. Claudia Gluck suffers from the Laura Horvath disease, where she's very similar to Ben Smith, where it might be Krypton Superman of that gym down in whatever Vermont sort of location he's at, but if you're at any other location on Earth, you might not catch Claudia Gluck out of the crowd. So for those reasons, you get to see Claudia. Annika Greer, her proportions really throw me for a loop. She's not the leanest, she doesn't have the biggest muscles, and she doesn't turn the most heads. Also a C for Annika Greer. Hetty Canyo's one notch up at a B. A little bit leaner than Annika, a bit more muscle mass, and her personality might be a 10, but we're not ranking people on their personality today. We're ranking them on their ability to take a picture, stand out in a crowd. Honestly, this one shocked me. Olivia Kerstetter, she also gets a B. From the outside looking in, it looks like Olivia's done a lot of conditioning. Remember, when I mean conditioning, it can probably parallel with what you might have thought it meant. It looks like she's lost some body fat. For those reasons, she wiped the floor at the Fittest Experience competition. She's still as strong as ever, and she echoed a lot of that in the Sevon podcast the other day. But before I did any sort of research on this thing, I probably would have said she'd be hanging out with Laura Horvath, but she is 2 steps above in the B tier. You go Glenn Coco. I never heard of Christina Leviticus.
This is blasphemous.
Call me a silly American, Brian. But she's got a pretty good amount of muscle on her, and she's very symmetrical with a decent amount of conditioning. C tier. Ariel Lowen's kind of an anomaly. She is incredible. She has gotten better than ever post-pregnancy. She is hanging out in the S tiers with the Abby Domits of the world. She's symmetrical, she's strong, especially for her size. She's freaking jacked, top to bottom, side to side, front to back. Lucy Campbell's got the least muscle mass for somebody as high as she's ranked. She kind of reminds me of a Katrin David's daughter, where when you look at her, it's just kind of how the human body was supposed to appear. And as this is an appearance ranking system, and she's very, very, very lean, she's hanging out with the A's. The other Lucy's also an A. Her saving grace was that she has a little bit more muscle on her, but she's a little less lean. But I got a feeling that's going to change as she grows in the sport. Maybe even more muscle, maybe even leaner, maybe even more stage presence. I'd never heard of Luisa Marquez.
This is blasphemous.
But the chick has a bunch of muscle on her. And I might need to adjust this rank a little bit because she's got 63,000 followers, which means someone's looking at her. All right, dude, you're going from a C to a B. I'm okay with you being a B. Now, Maria Quintero, never really heard much of her, but she is now currently down at Mayhem. She's going to get a C. And she's going to get a C because she doesn't look the leanest. She doesn't have the most muscle on her. Things keeping her out, just like a lot of the athletes away from the Laura Horvath grade of a D, are going to be her symmetry and her proportions. This is going to be a great year for Syra Miha. Damn, I hope that's how you say your name. We got our fourth and final S-tier athlete here. Any single picture you look at her, yoked. She might have the perfect proportions of a CrossFit Games athlete on the women's side. The only question is, how did she get here so quickly? Now, Mariana Meza is this chick that had a fake Instagram account or an old Instagram account, so I was about to give her an F, but after I looked at her, she ends up in the C tiers, one above Laura Horvath. There's this picture of her in a sauna that was the saving grace of all of it. She's yoked. But her issue is her arms are a little bit too small compared to her torso, compared to her legs. Like there's sticks coming out of this brick house. Sid Mikulishin, in your first year, you get a B. You get a B because of your leanness. Mirama would have loved nothing more as the hierarchy of the group to have thrown you below Laura Horvath. But I couldn't do that because you're jacked, you're symmetrical, and everyone is talking about you. But you only get to go one notch above Laura. C tier. Jennifer Muir, you got abs, which means you're well conditioned. But you got like the worst frame presence out of any single one of them. I couldn't find a single picture that I wanted to actually use on this ranking list, and for that reason, you're in the C's. Lexi Neely, another person that you really can't see much of. Great proportions, terrible frame presence, not a lot of muscle mass, you're in the B's. The time has come for Carolyn Prevost. I can't rank Carolyn Prevost.
Why not?
I've met Carolyn Prevost in person. I know that she's got a crazy history, bunch of accolades. She's one of the fittest people to ever walk the planet. So I hope that somewhere you have another spot to kind of store this grade where you're just going to be an F. You're the one person below Laura Horvath, but it's basically because I can't rank you. I don't know your proportions, can't tell how much muscle mass you've got, I don't know how lean you are. I got my eye on you, that one, this eye. The one that's only half open. Alexis Raptis gets an A tier. Pretty big hit because she doesn't got all that much muscle on her, but where she lacks muscle, she makes up in symmetry. And if you can't tell at this point, basically all of this list is how you look. And the things that are most appealing to the human eye are things that look the same from left to right. The further away you look like that thing from 300, the better.
You are wrong!
Madeline Sturt almost made the S tier. She's an A. She's so freaking small, but for how small she is, she has a lot of muscle on her. She might be the best conditioned chick on the list. And if she would just hire a photographer or have somebody make her look actually cool, she might be even higher on the list. But I think that an A is pretty good. And I said we were all out of S's, but I didn't say that we were all out of double S's. And you're probably thinking, and maybe way back in the beginning when I asked you who would be the highest ranked person on the list, you were thinking Tia. It's like, yeah, you're right. Tia's hanging out with Amy and Andrea Pinheiro at the top of the food chain. She isn't as good as Pinheiro. In the world of muscle mass, nobody can beat Pinheiro, the 41-year-old. Not even the freaking 8-time CrossFit Games champion, Tia. 7, 8, whatever, it'll be 8. Gracie Walton gets a B. Gracie Walton could be leaner, she could be bigger, more muscular. Because if you were bigger the other way, you'd go lower on the conditioning scale. But front to back, side to side, she looks pretty good. She gets very high gradings on those. Brooke Wells is a little bit lower on the list than some might have expected. And in Mason's video, we talked about Justin and how Justin looks better than he did in the past. Well, I think he actually looked the best, and then he looked the worst, and he looked slightly better than the worst. Brooke, I think that she looked the best, and then even better, and now she's worse. But if worst is a B amongst the best in the world, I don't think it's all that bad. Brooke Wells gets a B. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's the entire freaking thing. I'd be curious if you picked up on the fact that I actually made a legitimate ranking on this entire spiel. I brought up things such as conditioning and muscle mass and symmetry and proportions and frame presence. Because like some of you might know, I did a whole bunch of bodybuilding stuff before I did the powerlifting and the CrossFit that I got into and now only do CrossFit content on. So I figured that I would make some sort of a ranking system based upon those sort of principles. Things that I thought that were interesting is that conditioning, being one of the fittest people on the planet, as all of these chicks are, it's hard for you to go below a 6. And the only person that I put below a 6 was Laura Horvath, which is ironic because she won the CrossFit Games and probably had the best conditioning that year. But it's a great example of how conditioning versus what I mean by conditioning are very different, which is basically fitness versus bodybuilding conditioning. If Rebecca Fuselier were on the list, she'd have the lowest muscle mass. Take that back, Lydia Fish had a 2. Dang, if that chick had more muscle mass on her, she'd be in the A's. Best thing CrossFit's gonna do for you is when you look at somebody symmetrically, they're gonna look pretty symmetrical. It's hard to have one arm or bicep that is bigger or smaller than the other ones, because everything that we do are compound lifts. That said, Lydia Fish got a 10 on the symmetry scale, and so did Pinheiro, and so did Toomey, but you know, they got a whole lot of other 10s as well. Proportions, top to bottom. This is something that I would probably like to do with the dudes more than the chicks. Mason was gonna hammer Ricky for his chicken legs.
He looks like he's got small legs.
I think that Brooke Wells actually had the opposite problem. She got a 5. I hammered her because it's like her lower body is too big in proportion to her upper body. And actually, a a lot of the chicks in the C tier also had a 5 ranking. Claudia Gluck being the exception with an 8 along with Se-Young Choi. Their proportions top to bottom, their upper body was proportionate to their lower body. And then frame presence, you get it. If you've got virality in your blood on the Instagram algorithm, then you're gonna have a higher frame presence. I mean, look at the Danielle Brandon video on the CrossFit Games YouTube page. It got the most views within a day. That said, whenever I put up a picture of Pinheiro or Toomey, it gets the most clicks on it. So Danielle can't have as high of a grade. Brooke Wells used to be a 10 on the frame presence, and now she's an 8. So if this video gets 50,000 views, I'll go back and I'll do the dudes as well. But if it doesn't, then I'm done with this. I don't think you can argue with any of these. This is your grade, and it's entirely irrelevant to you guys, because you're in the sport of fitness. You're not doing bodybuilding, and unless you want to go the route of Carolyn Prevost and make it impossible for me to make a grade upon the things that you can see on any picture or any video on the internet, well, then just deal with it.